of the people you will be seeing in this program have one thing in common. Each has had reason to believe in the likely existence of non-earthly life in the universe.
The universe is huge. It's bigger than you can ever imagine it to be. And it is continuously expanding.
It was near dusk on November 5th, 1975. A truckload of forestry workers were making their way home when they saw something strange to one side of the road. They stopped, and one of them, Travis Walton, got out to take a closer look.
We saw a light coming through the trees. There was an opening there where we had an unobstructed view, and we saw this craft hovering there. It was so close and so unmistakable that everybody instantly knew what it was. One of the guys in the back yelled out, "It's a flying saucer." I mean, it was just absolutely no two ways about it.
If we think that there are civilizations outside in the universe somewhere, then why haven't we been able to make any contact with them so far? So some of the ways to go about thinking about this problem is to just think about the vastness of the universe.
Well, I believe there's a lot of extraterrestrial life because the universe is awfully big and it's got lots of places like ours. I mean, if you just look in our own galaxy, our own Milky Way, there's billions of places there that could be just like this one, that could have evolved just like this one, in the past, in the future, in the present. We don't know. We are an eye blink in time and space. That's all we are.
Recently, the Voyager space probe has passed Pluto, and now we finally have an image of what Pluto looks like. That's it. Right now, the most zoomed in image that we have of Pluto was from a spacecraft that we sent about a couple decades ago. So that's where our human spacecraft has reached. Now think about other civilizations. Maybe it took them a similar amount of years to 1, develop into a civilization, 2, develop into a sentient civilization, and then 3, have enough of a development to achieve space flight.
When we speak of life beyond Earth, what we generally mean is, of course, intelligent life, something resembling our noble selves. It is highly probable that there are such intelligent forms of life in other galaxies in the universe. And it is even more probable that many of these forms are vastly more intelligent than we.
When I got up to it, where I was looking up at about a 45-degree angle, it suddenly got louder and started to move. You know, I had the urge to turn and run, but, you know, for some reason my immediate reaction was just jump for cover. I jumped down behind a log there. I stood up to run, and as soon as I straightened up, this bolt of energy came out of the bottom of the craft and hit me.
So in terms of what we look for in terms of a habitable planet, we only have an example of life on Earth. And so most of the stuff that we look towards is life that would be similar to terrestrial life. So if you take an Earth-sized planet, if it were much bigger, then it would be mostly a gas planet like Jupiter or Saturn. We wouldn't be able to live on it. If it were much smaller, it would be a barren, rocky planet that we wouldn't be able to breathe on because there wouldn't be an atmosphere. But there is this kind of range that they call the Goldilocks zone, that if you're just in that range as a planet, you could have liquid water. And that's what we talk about for potentially habitable worlds, Earth-sized planets in the Goldilocks zone. And we found lots of them, hundreds of potential planets.
So when we ask, is there anything else, we're just really asking for our own sakes. We don't really understand how big it all is and what the possibilities are.
Dr. Persinger feels that what happened at Fatima in Portugal in the early years of this century can be explained in this way.
Several thousands of people saw a luminous display. They thought it was the sun because they had no other word for it. They called it the sun, but it was below the clouds. Right? Estimated 30,000 people saw that event. Those that were closest to it had the richest imagery and experience. Those that were far away only saw a ball of light. Those that were very close and of one religious persuasion saw Joseph or whatever. Those that were of another religious persuasion thought they saw Christ. The camera only saw a ball of light.
People believe in higher powers because the higher powers are themselves in many ways. The higher power is the best of ourselves. We don't think of God in general in this world as if God were somebody different from us. That's kind of how we would tend to see God, because we are human. I mean, all of these images and ideas, they're human-rooted. They're based in humanity. So we have an idea of God that just fits in with all of that. We don't necessarily understand that perhaps we don't understand.
When I regained consciousness, I was still in a lot of pain, and when I could finally focus my eyes and saw these creatures standing over me, I just, flipped out. I became out of control with fear. This feeling of suffocation, this feeling that I was mortally wounded, the feeling of being trapped, all of these things came together to generate the most panic you can imagine. There was an instrument of some kind, some sort of device across my chest. And as soon as I saw the creatures and realized where I was, I just rolled in the opposite direction and sort of lashed out at them, pushed them away. I just wanted to keep them away from me, so I started screaming and flailing through the air before they ever got within range of actually being struck. But they stopped out of reach and stared at me in a way that felt so disturbing. I felt this squirmy feeling in my head that it was very excruciating. It was kind of a horrible, horrible feeling that came with that stare that, that was the thing that dominated my nightmares for months afterwards. So they left me there and went in one direction, I went in another direction, looking for a way out of there, trying to escape.
I think when you look at the question of whether or not there is life out there, there are basically two answers. Either there is life out there are civilizations out there, or there aren't. Those are the only two options. And the interesting thing about that is that either answer is a profound answer. If we find life on other worlds, if we find civilizations beyond our own, that's a powerful representation that we're part of a much larger galactic community. On the other hand, if we look out into the universe and we find that we're it, that says something about how precious and rare we actually are. So either answer is a profound answer, and I think that's probably the greatest reason why it's worth exploring this question.
So there is one thing that I would say would be kind of important when you think about life in the universe is what kind of life? Because right now what we as humans are most familiar with is organic life, carbon-based life forms. And that is usually what we look for when we look at other planets for if they have life in it and what kind of environment carbon-based life form would be in. But there is a non-zero possibility that there could be other kind of life forms. Like even on Earth, we have some bacteria which can live inside a volcano. So you never know, there could be those kind of life forms elsewhere in the universe who have developed differently with adaptations for their own world. So we have come up with, the 2 arms, 2 legs, nice big head for our world, for Earth. But there could be other ways of adaptation that could go through. Like there could be other forms of evolution that can happen on other worlds.
It's interesting, belief in aliens and belief in God have a lot of parallels, a lot of close parallels, I think. And if we look at the recent science fiction films, we see efforts to look to the aliens to solve human problems, or to destroy humanity, actually, is the downside of that. But the solving of our problems is one of the key things that we have. And this is what we expect of God. We pray to God. We also send messages out into the interstellar medium out there to see whether or not aliens are going to come back and talk to us. And what are we going to expect from them? Well, I don't know, but sometimes I get the feeling that people are going to expect a sort of a deistic approach, that they're going to say, we have the solutions to your problems of climate and of wealth and all these other things, and we can bestow this on you and heal you all and make you feel better. And that is very close to a feeling that we do when we pray to God.
I was pushing buttons to see if I might be able to open a door. And nothing seemed to work. None of these buttons really seemed to do anything. But a man came in, And this was a human being, not these little alien-looking creatures at this point. So I took this to be a rescue, because that's what I, was most looking for, is get me out of here any way I can. So when he wanted me to go with him, I went. So he took me out of this large room, this large enclosure, down a hallway to another room where there was some other people who were dressed similar to him. They seemed to be urgent, like they were in kind of a hurry. And they were trying to get me to lay down on this table, and I was resisting. They put a mask over my face, but I was able to get one hand free and get it under the edge of the mask. But before I could pull it away, I blacked out. When I woke up, I don't know how much time had gone by. I found myself lying outside in the cold. I could see that I was lying on pavement, and there was a light above, and I just looked to see where the light was coming from. And when I looked in the direction of the light, and I could just see the shiny metal surface before it shot up into the sky.
And the last important thing is, right now we can only see up to a certain distance in the galaxy. And we're only looking at one galaxy. There are millions of galaxies out there with millions of planets, billions of stars, and billions of planets around those stars. So possibilities are literally endless.
And if even after considerable search we don't find that our counterparts exist somewhere else, I cannot think that will be wrong either, because I think that will give us a heavier responsibility to try to represent some sort of approach to intelligence in this extraordinarily large and diverse universe.